Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Shape and Read. Today I'll be doing my October wrap up. Before I get started, if you're new to this channel, please don't hesitate to subscribe down below as well as the notification bell. And if you're new, hi, hello, I'm Stephanie and I do a lot of bookish content. And honestly, October was probably my worst reading month of the entire year. So let's just get right into all the books that I did read. So for the month of October, I managed to read only 9 books, which meant I read a total of 3,506 pages. And not only was my quantity of books bad, but also the quality of the books, because I gave one book 1 stars, one book 2.5 stars, 3 book 3 stars, 1 book 3.5 stars, 2 books 4 stars, and then 1 book that was 4.5 stars. So actually a lot of the books I read were 3 stars and under, which is never a good thing for me. So not only was the quality, but also the quantity was not the greatest. So October was definitely a very low point in my reading month. And most of the books I did read, I actually talked about in my Bookopathy readathon. So there was a Spookopathy readathon that was happening. I did a whole month-long vlog. So I'll link that above and down below so you can check that out, because I did talk about those books a lot more in detail there. So I'm not going to spend too much time rehashing everything in this video. But the first book I want to talk about is The Stolen Heir, which I gave 3.5 stars. This is the first book in the spin-off series to The Cruel Prince, which I absolutely adored. Unfortunately, I did feel like this book was kind of lacking. I just didn't really feel super connected to the characters or the plot as of yet. I kind of want to reread the entire Cruel Prince series once this series is done, so I can kind of re-immerse myself and kind of understand the politics a lot more, because it's been a couple of years since I read that series and I don't know if maybe I'm just missing out on some of the politic nuances or the small details or whatnot. But I definitely felt like it took me some time to get into the rhythm of the story compared to the Cruel Prince series. I remember just getting right into it and having no issues understanding the plot, understanding the politics behind it, the relationships, understanding the characters and falling in love with them. This book took me a lot longer, and that's why it kind of took away my enjoyment from the book overall. Not just that, but I just don't feel as much of a connection with Oak and Surin. Like, I feel like Jude and Cardan had this instant chemistry of like a love-hate relationship, and I was so here for that. And Oak and Surin, I don't know, I'm just very like lukewarm about their relationship, so I think that's also plays a major part in my enjoyment overall. The next book I want to talk about is The Last Invitation by Darby Kane. This book I gave 3 stars. This is a thriller novel, and it basically follows 2 characters. One is Jessa, who is a lawyer, and she has been fighting her way her entire life to get to the top, and she finally has this exclusive invite to this secret society called the Sophie Foundation, and she's trying to claw her way into this membership only society as a way for her to gain back control in her own life. On the other hand, there is her former friend Gabby, where they used to be, I want to say, in law school together, so they were friends back then. They were like more like frenemies, and something happened to her now dead husband, and she's trying to investigate this mysterious death, and she stumbles upon the Sophie Foundation, and she feels like there must be some sort of link between that foundation and the mysterious death of her husband. And the two of them end up crossing paths because of this foundation, and it turns out that this foundation is behind a lot of foul play for a lot of very, very bad men that are somehow escaped from the justice system. And so this book kind of just follows like what is right, what is wrong, what is foundation really doing, you know, like the pros and cons of it all, and the justice, the right and wrong. And I was pretty interested in this book because it definitely was different than my other thrillers. I feel like other thrillers are very like high stakes, high impact, action packed, all of that. This book was more on the slow end, and it took me some time to get into the book as well. I also felt like the dual POVs kind of took me off guard, because it kind of also, if I remember correctly, so I did read this book a little while ago, it also flashed back between present day and the past. So there were times where you're just like, wait, what is happening? What is going on? So the timeline was a little bit confusing. But overall though, I did still enjoy this book. The next book I want to talk about is The Black Witch, which I gave 4 stars. I actually really enjoyed this book. I also talked about this a lot more in my Bookopathy readathon, which I will again link above and down below, so check that out. Like I said, enjoyed this book immensely. I went into it with trepidation because I was like, I heard mixed feelings about the series overall. I did hear the first book, maybe the second book is also really good, but then it kind of dragged. And the next book, which I believe is the final book, is supposed to be set to come out in end of next year. And I don't know if I want to wait that long, because the 4th book came out last year, so it's been like over a year already, and I just don't know if I wanted to jump into a series that is just dragging its feet. But that being said though, this first book was amazing. The book started off really slow. It follows a girl, I forget her name now, but she is a Gardenian where her history is seen as above everyone else's, and so she's very sheltered. She grew up very sheltered. Her uncle basically didn't teach her much in terms of politics and nuances. All she learned was like from people around her essentially, and somehow she ends up going to this academy because of her aunt, and she is the granddaughter of the previous Black Witch, which is this prominent figure in Gardenian history but is seen as a terrible person outside of Gardenian society. So everyone basically disliked her grandmother, but she is seen as the next Black Witch because she looked exactly like her. Unfortunately, she has no power whatsoever. She's been wand tested many times apparently, and she is a level 1, which is the lowest of the lowest in terms of power outage. And she goes to the academy with her prejudices against everyone else, then finds out that actually, hey, you know what, maybe her history is biased and she would like to learn more about her roommates, about the people around her, etc. And I just really enjoyed her character development and her character growth. In the beginning, she was very off-putting because of how prejudiced she was, and I was not vibing with that whatsoever. But then as she learned to understand and was willing to understand, that's when I started to really like her as a character. I also like the magic system in here because I thought that was really fascinating with all the different types of people and species. So overall, I really enjoyed this book. The next book I want to talk about is the highest book I read this past month, and that is Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood. Obviously, this was a highly anticipated book for me. I was really excited to read it, and it did not disappoint. It was not a 5-star read though. I do still feel like her other books were by far superior, but I still really enjoyed this one overall. This book follows a girl. Her name is Elsie Hanaway, where she is an adjunct professor, and she's trying to get into more of a research role because she doesn't really like teaching students or anything like that. She doesn't want to deal with all of that anymore. And because of her adjunct professor position and not giving her a really good salary, she becomes a fake girlfriend as a side hustle and to basically pay off her bills. Now she has the opportunity to be part of the MIT staff, and she's excited for this opportunity, except for the fact that there's a guy, his name is Jack Smith, who somehow, due to circumstances, know about her side hustle. And right off the bat, they do not like each other. So this is very much a kind of like an enemies to lovers romance, except they're not trying to kill each other. There's definitely some sort of misunderstandings involved, but they definitely did not like each other at all. And I just really enjoyed this book, guys. I thought it was really fun. I thought it was entertaining. I really like the characters, their romance, their dynamics together. That being said though, I still like her other books more. Now that I talked about my favorite book of the month, going on to my least favorite book, and that is Nothing But Black and Teeth by Catherine Call. This was absolutely horrible. This book I gave 1 star. I read this also for the readathon, and it's basically about a group of friends who, one pair is about to go get married, and for some reason they go on this like haunted house trip in the middle of Japan. And one girl, the main character, she goes in there and she immediately senses that something is off, and she's like, we should leave, we should go. She keeps hearing this Japanese phrase over and over again, but no one listens to her. And then of course, as any Japanese horror story, people die. So just when someone dies, they're like, well, we had a funeral and that was that. And I'm just like, what the fuck? So this book was just not a fan. I don't really like short stories because of this. I feel like just when you're kind of getting into it, it just immediately ends. Not just that, but I felt like there was no premise, there was no setup. It was just bam, we're in this haunted house. There's no explanation whatsoever as to why they were there, and then bam, if someone dies, okay, we're done. Like, I don't know, there needs to be a lot more build up, and there needs to be a lot more like character growth and development, or at least something super riveting, and this book did not deliver on any front whatsoever. But because this was a short book, I did end up finishing it, though if this was any longer, I would have DNF'd this. The next book I picked up is Blood Bonds, which is the Bonds That Tie series. It's book number 3, and this book I gave 4 stars. Honestly, I picked up the first book as on a whim because I was doing a secret video, which is not out yet because I only read that 1 book so far, and since then I have pretty much devoured the entire series. I just finished book 5 in November, and I'm waiting for the 6th book to be available on Libby, and I think that's the final book. But I am really enjoying this book overall, the series. It's so much fun. I just love the characters. I'm so invested in their stories right now. I love all the banter and how each character is just so different. I would say that at the beginning they were a little bit confusing, especially because there's so many. So it follows Ollie. Her full name is Oleander, and she is the central bond to 5 men, and they are extremely hot, extremely good looking, like all have different, very extremely powerful as well. They all have different powers. And not just that, but 2 of them are brothers, which is a little bit weird for me too, because I'm just like, 2 brothers are sharing you? I don't know. And it is smut, very heavily on the smut section, because it gets intense. I would say the first book was definitely more downplayed a little bit in terms of this one because they're just trying to get to know each other. There's a lot of previous stuff that they're going through, and then now that they are slowly getting into their bond more and more, there's a lot more sex scenes, and it is steamy. Like there are some steamy scenes. So if you like all that, I highly recommend this one. There is fantasy, there's magic. I love the anticipation of the resistance and how they are seen as the good guys and the resistance are the bad guys. Usually it's the opposite way around, where the resistance are actually doing something good because there is some sort of like government that is very terrible and they're trying to overthrow it. But in this case, it's the exact opposite, where the resistance is actually trying to do things that are terrible instead. So I thought that was so fascinating to see like the other side in this sense. But who knows, maybe the resistance have their own like, I don't know, like thought process behind it and their beliefs, and to them it's like this government's terrible, this system's terrible, and so they're trying to resist it. But from what I can understand right now, it seems like the resistance are terrible. So anyways, really enjoy the series. I highly recommend it. I definitely cannot wait for this last book to come out on my Libby. It's already out. I'm just waiting for my Libby for it to be available so I can just finish it because I want to know more about Nox and all the other characters, just like obsessed with them all. Then this next book I want to pick up is Violet Made of Thorns by Gina Chen. This book I gave 2.5 stars. I really want to like this book. This book is stunning. This cover, this edition I have is the Owlcrate edition, and it is gorgeous. So I was really hoping for an equally gorgeous inside. Unfortunately, that was not the case. So this book follows a girl, her name is Violet, who is the royal seer. So she basically works for the royal family with prophecies and having her visions and whatnot, but she does not get along with the crown prince. His name is Cyrus, and things are not going to go her way if she doesn't get his approval, because once the current king passes away, she needs his approval to continue on as the royal seer. But because of circumstances, which is very muddled, they hate each other, even though he was the one who brought her to the palace to give her a better life, because he basically found her off the streets as an orphan, and she saved his life randomly one day because she saw a vision of him dying. So she waited for him for that vision to pass, and then was able to be there at this right time to save his life. And so ever since then, he's felt like weird against her, even though he's the one who brought her to the palace. And so they don't like each other anymore because of all the past histories now. And I don't know, I just felt like I never really fully understood why he didn't like her so much. And there's definitely a lot of chemistry between the two of them, like it's very obvious from the start, but because of their history, I was never really on board with their romance. So I don't know, I also felt like this book was a little dry at some points because it definitely was slow. Like it was definitely not an action-packed book. There wasn't a ton of magic in here. Besides her like visions that she was seeing, nothing else crazy was happening for the most part until like I want to say the second half of the book. So I don't know, my friend really enjoyed it. I unfortunately did not. And then when I did finish it, she was like, I'm surprised you even finished it. And I was like, honestly, me too, because I should have just DNF'd it. But I think one day I was just at work and I was just sitting there for lunch and I was like, I'm just going to finish it, and I just did. I was like, I'm just done with this book. So that is what happened. Then this next book I picked up, it was for my book club, and that is Our Best Intentions by Vibhuti Jain. I'm really hoping I'm pronouncing that last name correctly, but this book I gave 3 stars. I would say for the most part my book club was very ambivalent about this book because it was just an okay read. It follows a couple different POVs. One of them is Angie, where she is a swimmer and she basically one day witnesses the aftermath of one of her classmates stabbing, and she rushes over, finds out that he was stabbed, and calls 911 to save his life. And then after that, she's questioned in terms of who was a suspect, and due to these misleading / forced interpretation of these questions, Tiara Tompkins, who is a black girl, is now seen as the prime suspect, even though Angie herself kept telling the investigators like, I didn't actually see her do anything, she might have been there, I don't know. But the questions were very, very leading that it seemed clear that they were trying to push this onto that poor girl. And as the story kind of progresses, we also follow her father, who is a Uber driver. And as the book kind of continues, we see a lot of like racial discrimination because they are also an Indian immigrant family. and the guy that was stabbed is from a very white, affluent family. And so there's a lot of things that they're trying to cover up because of the fact that they're white, they're powerful, they're rich, etc. And I don't know, I like the messages in this book, but I also felt like it was very mediocre in terms of the characters. Like, I didn't care much for the father at all. I thought it was kind of annoying. A lot of people in my book club really didn't like Angie at all. They just thought she was like a super annoying teenager. But what I did find was super interesting was actually at the end you get Kira's perspective of what actually happened. And I thought that was so fascinating because I feel like you don't usually get that perspective, because considering I didn't get that perspective at all the entire book, and suddenly bam, we get like a chapter of hers, and it was like the most riveting part of this book, to be quite honest. So overall, I feel like this book was okay. I feel like this book had a lot of hype to it, but it just didn't really do it for my book club members or me. All right, then this last book I want to talk about is The Most Likely Club by Alyssa Friedland. This book I gave 3 stars. I really wanted to enjoy this book. This book had such a great premise. It follows, I want to say, 4 women where they were like best friends in high schools, and they got onto the most likely list on the yearbook. So some of them were like most likely to cure cancer, some of them were most likely to succeed, etc, etc. And now many years later, I want to say it's like 20 or 30 years later, 25 years later, they are at their high school reunion, and they realize that nothing has gone according to plan in terms of what they were trying to succeed when they were in high school. So the book kind of goes into dual timelines, so when they're in high school to the present day, and what they're trying to do now to still have time to succeed in their goals. And honestly, I didn't care for the characters, and like I said already, I'm more of a character driven reader. So because I didn't love the characters, I didn't love this book either, and it kind of felt juvenile in a way, even though they're supposed to be like middle-aged women in their like 40s essentially. So they're definitely mature, but they just did not seem that way at all. And I don't know, I just felt like this book could have been so much better. The premise sounded so fun, so interesting. I was expecting a lot of like drama, gossip, all of that, but that was not really what I got. So unfortunately, this book was just an okay read overall. So anyways, those are all the books I want to talk about for this video. Like I said, October was honestly a very mediocre month for me. I'm already hitting off November a lot stronger. Just a quick little sneak peek. It is November 8th. And I don't think it's that amazing actually, but I did manage to finish 4 books already. So I'm really hoping that November will be much better. And out of those 4 books, I gave 3 of them like very high, like 4 stars, and then one of them is probably like a 3.5 stars. But still, like, I'm just hoping that this continues on with the month of November, and I'll be reading some top tier books overall. But anyways, let me know down below what you read for the month of October. How did you do? I hope you had a better reading month than I did. But as always, if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up, or if you just have my channel. And if you see more content of me, please don't hesitate to subscribe down below, as well as the notification bell. And as always, don't forget to follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.